Greetings, I'm Brien Posey, a Microsoft MVP and a longtime TechTarget contributor, and today I'm going to give you a crash course in iSCSI. So before I show you how to set up iSCSI, I want to talk for a second about why you would use iSCSI. Well, there's three main benefits. For starters, iSCSI gives you access to higher capacity remote storage. A lot of servers have very limited internal storage, and iSCSI is a very easy way to connect to another storage mechanism such as a storage area network or even remote storage hosted across the internet. Another advantage is that remote storage can be shared. If you're creating a failover cluster, one of the requirements is that all of the nodes within the cluster need to be able to access the same centralized storage pool, and this can be achieved through iSCSI because you can set up each individual cluster node to access the same storage using iSCSI connections. A third advantage is that iSCSI connected drives are treated as if they were local hard drives. Now this is important because some server applications such as Microsoft Exchange won't let you store databases on storage devices such as NAS devices. The databases have to be kept locally, and iSCSI allows you to meet this requirement without actually having to have enough physical storage within your server to accomplish it. So one more thing that I want to do before I actually show you how to set up iSCSI is to go over a few terms that I'm going to be using. First of all, the iSCSI initiator. The iSCSI initiator is a software component that is used to establish the connection between the computer and the remote storage. Another term is the iSCSI target. The iSCSI target resides on the computer that's hosting the remote storage. The iSCSI initiator has to be configured to connect to the iSCSI target. Now one last term that you're going to need to know is the IQN, or iSCSI qualified name. All this is an identifier. Every iSCSI initiator has an IQN assigned to it, and what this is used for is you provide the iSCSI target with the IQN of the iSCSI initiator, so that way it knows who's going to be connecting, and you don't have the security risk of just allowing random connections from anybody. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so here I have a server that's running Windows Server 2008 R2, and I'm going to go to the Start menu and go to Administrative Tools, and you'll see that we have an option called iSCSI Initiator. Now this comes with the operating system. This isn't something that I installed. So I'm going to launch this, and you'll see that I get a message saying that the Microsoft iSCSI service is not running, and that the service is required to be started for iSCSI to function correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and click Yes, and this is going to force the service to start and to run from here on out so that iSCSI always works. So I'm going to click Yes. Now after a brief delay, the iSCSI Initiator properties sheet comes up. Now we're not quite ready to configure iSCSI yet because we still have to set up a target, which I'm going to do in just a second. But what we do have to do is go over here to the Configuration tab and get the IQN name. Remember, this is the identifier that identifies this particular computer so that it can connect. In this case, the IQN is iqn.1991-05.com.microsoft:scom.production.com. This just happens to be the name of the computer that I'm using. Okay, so I've switched over to another machine. This machine is going to act as my target, and I'm running Windows Storage Server 2008 on this machine. Now the first thing that we have to do is install the iSCSI target software. This isn't something that comes with Storage Server, but it is something that you can download. So I'm just going to go to my DVD drive, and my x64 folder, and the iSCSI target. It's preparing to install. Click Next on the welcome screen, accept the license agreement, click Install. And we've installed the target. It was that easy. So I'll click Finish, close this out, and the target should be listed on my Start menu. And here's what the target looks like. So now that we've got the iSCSI target software installed, we have to build a target. So to do that, I'm going to go up to iSCSI Targets, right click on it, and say Create iSCSI Target. This is going to launch the Create iSCSI Target wizard. I'll click Next, and it's going to ask me for a target name. Normally you would want to use something descriptive, and you can even enter an optional description. But for this case, I'm just going to call it Demo, and we'll click Next. And now it's going to ask me for an IQN identifier. This is going to be the IQN of my iSCSI initiator that's going to be connecting to the target. So that was IQN .1991-005.com/scom.production.com. So I'll click next and finish. And incidentally, you can add multiple IQNs to a target if you need to. So you see that now that we created the target, it's listed in the target names field right here. But we're not quite done yet, because even though we've created a target, we still haven't linked that target to any storage resources. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to devices, and we're going to create a virtual hard drive and link that to the target. So what I'm going to do is right click and select create virtual disk, and that's going to launch the create virtual disk wizard. I'm going to click next, and it's going to ask me for a file and a path. I've got a D drive that I'm using for data storage, so I'm just going to put d:/demo.vhd, and we'll click next, and it's going to ask me what size I want to make the virtual hard disk. You can go anywhere from 8 gigs on up to whatever your maximum is here. So I'm just going to make a 10 gig virtual disk and click next. It's going to ask me for a description. I'm just going to put demo, click next, and now it's going to ask me for iSCSI targets that it can accept this disk. Now we've already set up our iSCSI target a second ago. Now we're actually linking it to the storage that we're defining here. So I'm going to click add. Here's our iSCSI target, so I'm going to click that and click OK and click next and click finish, and we're done. Now you can see our virtual disk listed right here in the devices field. If I go back to iSCSI targets, you can see demo. So now I'm going to switch back over to my other machine. Now I'm going to connect to my iSCSI target that I've created. There's a couple different ways that you can do this. The easiest way is to just use the quick connect option, which allows you to input the IP address and then just click quick connect. And now we're connected. It's that easy. Now if you have trouble with this, there's a couple of things to check. For starters, you'll notice that iSCSI uses port 3260, so you've got to make sure that this is open on your firewall. The other big thing that tends to trip people up is misspelling the IQN. So if you've opened the firewall port and you still can't connect, double check to make sure that you've spelled the IQN correctly on your iSCSI target. And again, you can find that under the configuration tab, and you can even change this using the change button if that makes things a little bit easier on you. Okay, so we're connected to our iSCSI target, but what does that really mean? Well, I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to open up the disk management console. And here we have disk 1 unknown, 10 megabytes unallocated, and this is our iSCSI target. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this online, and it switches to not initialized, so I'm going to right click and initialize disk. I'm going to call it disk 1, and I'm going to create an MBR partition. OK. So here we have 9 megs of unallocated space, and as I said earlier, you'll notice that the system treats this storage as if it's local to the system. I can go ahead and create a volume on it and assign it a drive letter and a file system. And here we have basically local storage, but this disk isn't local to the system. It's actually an iSCSI connected storage device. So in a nutshell, that's how iSCSI connectivity works.